This is Gigi Sabat, and you're listening to the Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Janna Johnson. She's a holistic nutritionist. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you today?
Fantastic. It's such an honor to have you here today, Janna.
Thank you. And it's an honor to be on your show.
Thank you. Now, why don't you start off by telling us more about you and where are you from?
Well, I am from Texas, Odessa, Texas, and I have lived here in Austin, Texas now for, I guess, about 17, 18 years. So um, I was born and raised Texas girl, and I probably always will be a Texan.
I love it. Now, tell us more about what inspired you to become a holistic nutrition coach.
Yeah. So, um, it's I was in accounting for a very long time, and I got really, really sick with Lyme disease. And during that journey, I learned a lot about food. And I learned that with food, you're either using it as medicine or a poison. And I, medicines didn't really work, and there's no cure for Lyme disease. And so for me, um, when I started to learn about using food as medicine, it was a game changer for me because sugar feeds all diseases. In fact, when you get sick or you have some sort of overgrowth in your body, you get very intense sugar cravings. And the reason that happens is because the disease or bacteria or pathogen, whatever it is that's in your body, makes you have those cravings. And the I would get these super intense cravings when I had Lyme disease. And so when I learned about that and I stopped feeding the disease, that was a huge turning point for me in getting well. And I really realized the power of food. I grew up eating homemade Southern food that my mom made every night and desserts every weekend. And so you know, I didn't realize that I wasn't really eating that healthy because that's how I grew up. And so when I made that change and then started to feel the huge difference, um, it was a game changer for me. And I knew at that point exactly what my purpose was here in this life. And that was to help others get well and to teach them that as well.
I love it. Now, you are a Lyme overcomer. Tell us a little bit
Yes.
more about your story in regards to Lyme.
Yes. So I got sick with Lyme disease in April of 2012. And, I didn't know what Lyme disease was at the time. In fact, I was one of the few 30% that got the bullseye rash on my leg. But because I didn't know what Lyme disease was, I didn't correlate the two because I couldn't. I didn't know what it was. Anyways, I got really, really sick over a period of 6 months, and it was very gradual at first. It started off with just, anxiety, fatigue, and just a little bit of brain fog. And then as 6 months went by, it just kind of came full throttle. I had severe panic attacks, and I was very confused, body aches and pains. I lost a lot of weight. I had derealization, and I went from a full-time mom, and working 40 hours a week to a shell of a woman. I couldn't function. I couldn't get out of bed. I had to have a full-time nanny, and I didn't know why. So at that point, it took a year and a half to figure out what was making me so sick. So I found out in November of 2013 that it was Lyme disease, and I also had hypothyroidism and severe gut issues and a heavy metal toxicity. And these things are all very common for people that have Lyme disease. You don't just get Lyme disease, right? You get a lot of other elements that want to join the party, and it's a lot to overcome. But it took me about a year and a half of really hard work after that to get myself well again, where I could fully function, not need a nanny, and then I would say around probably 2.5 years after finding out I had Lyme disease, I had healed myself. And so, Lyme disease there's no cure for it. And so everybody has to kind of find their own path. And it makes it really confusing because, when you're healthy, you can easily understand things and things make sense. But when you're really, really sick, nothing makes sense and you're too sick to retain information and to remember stuff. And so it's just really, really hard. And so I try to be a voice and a help for others that have Lyme disease.
It's very powerful. Now, what is your best advice, Jonna, to someone who may be struggling with their health or their confidence?
With health and confidence, it's for me, I feel like it's all in the mindset. And I really try to work with that with my clients. And mindset is everything. And honestly, the thing that holds us back the most, in my opinion, is fear. It's fear of what others think. We're all our own worst critics, I believe. I know I am mine. And I try to tell my clients to not beat yourself up, to treat yourself like you would your best friend or your child, and to get out of your own way. You know, the fears that we have right before we do something or, go for our dreams and such is that we're going to fail and or make ourselves look bad. And we think that the fears that we have inside is what everybody else thinks of us or how they perceive us. And that's just not true. And, I say that you have one life to live, so you need to live it. And time goes by no matter what. So you have to do your very best every day. I struggled with confidence issues for a very long time because I grew up in a very critical household. There was a lot of love in my household, but it was a very critical household. And when people say you're a product of your own environment. And I believe the reason of that is because that's how you grow up. And when you're a child, you don't know any different. And, it's easy to become the way that we're taught. And it took a lot of self work for myself to become confident. It was not something that was natural to me at all. I try to teach my kids that, but it's a struggle for them because of social media and how they grow up. But I try to teach people to just be your own self advocate and to love yourself, because the world can be messy sometimes and ugly, but we can always love ourselves.
That's right. Love yourself and get
Yes.
out of your own way. Write that down,
Yes.
gentlemen. Get out of your own way. Very powerful. Now, Jonna, you and we've spoken a lot of times in regards to mindset. Talk to us a little bit more about mindset and how important it is to have a positive mindset.
Yeah. So mindset to me is everything. When I tell people I'm a nutritionist and a health coach, they just assume I'm just going to teach them how to eat, tell them what to eat, what not to eat. Here's a grocery list. Here's some recipes. And that is a huge part of it. But as I've talked to you about before, it's it's so much more than that. It's your mindset. And it's easy to follow directions and to know what to eat and what not to eat. And that's the easy part for me. I think the hard part, though, is that if you don't have the right mindset, then you can't continuously implement those changes, because people, I think, strive for perfection. And when you strive for perfection, you don't leave the wiggle room for the imperfections, which we all are. And so, for me, it's like if you eat perfect every day and then you have that one day, right, that you had some cake or some french fries or whatever, people oftentimes just continue to go off the rails. And sometimes it's because they don't have that right mindset. You have to be easy on yourself, and you have to ultimately know the reason that you're doing what you're doing, right? Whether you're working on your confidence or getting healthier because you want to live a longer, happy, healthier life, you always have to go back to your why. Why am I doing this? And when I started going to nutrition school, I was I was a little surprised. The first activity that we had to do was we had to create this. It was a project we had to create called My Why. And I'm like, what does this have to do with nutrition? It was very powerful, and I still go back to it today, and I wrote a poem about it. But the reason was is because life gets really, really messy and hard sometimes, and we often forget about the reason that we're doing something. And if you just can go back to your why, I believe it helps keep you centered and it puts things into perspective. There's a lot of noise out there and a lot of pressure put on us today. And I believe if you can always go back to your why and your purpose and on giving value to others, that that always brings you back.
That's very true. Know your why. Now, Janna, what gives you the most joy?
Making others feel good, being with my kids, always. But I say that because I'm a single mom, so I have them half the time. So I had to say that one because being with my kids brings me joy. But my purpose in this life is to help others and show others how to feel their very best. And when I make a difference in someone's world and I make them feel better, just talking about it right now, when you asked me that, it brings tears to my eyes and it gives me the chills because that's my purpose, and making others feel good and watching them learn how to live a healthier life. It makes me feel fulfilled, brings me joy.
I love it. Now, Janna, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
Oh gosh, have a lot on that one. But I think, to bring yourself happiness, you have to live life for yourself. And the reason that that is my answer is because I lived for a very long time, and probably for most of my life, for until, a few years back, I feel like I lived life for everybody else, right? I lived life the way they wanted me to live it. And when I one day decided or realized I was doing that, I decided to live life for myself. And that sounds really selfish, but it's not. The reason is because this is your life and you have to live it for yourself the way you want to live it, and your beliefs and your values. And when you do that, everything else beautifully falls into place. And then you create the environment that is good for you, that's supportive, that's productive, and it brings the right people and the right circumstances into your life. And I think sometimes we all walk around a little confused, and that's because you're not living your life. You're living the way you think other people should think you should live. And so my best advice is to live your life the way you want to live it and do what makes you happy.
I love it. Now, Janna, thank you for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast.
Absolutely.
Where can the audience find you?
You can find me at revivebyjanna.com. That's my website, and it's being updated. And Instagram, Revive by Janna, Facebook as well. And I also have a podcast that's going to be coming out in January. It's going to be Revive with Janna, and I'm super excited to share my journey with Lyme and mindset and healing and overcoming.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Janna on all of her social media platforms and her website, Revive by Janna. Also, make sure to reserve your virtual seat for our upcoming events. That's the Global Confidence Conference on March 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern, and also the Global OCD Warriors Conference. That's on August 4th at 5 p.m. Eastern, and the Global Eating Disorders Conference on September 1st of next year, 5 p.m. Eastern as well. Janna will be speaking at those conferences as well. It's an event you do not want to miss. We have other amazing speakers from all over the world as well. A lot of value will be provided. Make sure to bring a pen and a notebook. And Janna, thank you again for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast.
Thank you, Gigi.
God bless.